turned up on a Sunday. I think it must have been the 9th of April because it was the day after my birthday. And we had a big party in the house. We had to do a very, very tidy up when somebody phoned to say that Maruma had just arrived in a helicopter. And he went around the island and visited lots of people, and I don't know, he seemed to have done his homework a wee bit, and he seemed like he had the right kind of notion. And obviously we were all disappointed, but we thought, he seems alright, we'll see what happens. So he visited that time for 2 days, he disappeared again, he came back in July with a very big piece of paper that was basically his concept. Didn't really say very much, but anyway. He disappeared again, and basically we never saw him again. And that October he hit the headlines again. He was being investigated for fraud for 1.5 million, which just happened to be what he paid for Egg. And sometimes reported that he secured a further loan from a Hong Kong businessman for a similar amount from a company in Liechtenstein. And we started faxing him. I mean, he was based in Stuttgart. All the things that, again, you know, like that, the meetings we had in Maruma, we presented him with our workshop results, and we told him about concerns, i.e. community hall, housing association, leases for everybody, and he was all, yes, everything will be wonderful. And none of them ever came to any fruition. But anyway, we started sending faxes so that everything was in writing. We had an opportunity for funding for managing the woodland, but we couldn't take advantage of it because we didn't have a lease. And he never answered one single lease we had, one single fax that we ever accepted. Nothing. Because that particular time we'd asked him, when these newspaper articles came out about fraud, we faxed him straight away and said, you know, can you clarify the situation, please? But no, we didn't get any reply to that either. So we started thinking, actually, you know, Schellenberg's gone, we've got Maruma, he's in Stuttgart, he's not answering anything, he's been investigated for fraud. So we started thinking we really should start planning seriously. You know, this can't go on forever. There was nothing happening here, although day-to-day life carries on as normal. There was there was just nothing. Houses were just falling into disrepair, all kinds of different, it's just nonsense. He was doing nothing. So surely we could do better than that. We didn't have a very step to go up. So, yes, we started looking at the suitable legal framework. The partners were still happy to be involved. January '96, the 3 remaining estate workers didn't receive their wages, which led us to issue another press release saying that there'd been mounting doubts as to the financial credibility of Maruma, doubtful that there were sufficient funds for the running of the island, wages were overdue, and it's intolerable in a community like this that people's livelihoods can be put in jeopardy by a third party based in Edinburgh or Stuttgart. Community has now lost confidence in Maruma, he's failed to fulfil any of his initial promises, and there's been a complete lack of response to our many communications. This is a sense of deja vu about the situation, and the community is more than ever convinced that there's no future for the island under the landlord system. It's clear that the only way forward is through a community-led buyout. So we jumped to July that year, and alarm bells started ringing seriously when we had a visit from land agents Knight Frank, who were based in Edinburgh. They arrived in a helicopter, and they said they'd come to look at the extent of the dry rot in the lodge, the big house. But the fact that they had an aerial photographer on board made us think that they were about to produce a sales brochure. So we phoned various friends in the press. They started harassing Knight Frank, who eventually had to admit that the island was being put up for sale. But that gave us a bit of a head start. You know, we'd talked enough about what we wanted to do, so the council came into their own at this point, and they put together an appeal leaflet, which we managed to put in all the service points and libraries around this area. Scottish Wildlife Trust came up with a slightly more glossy leaflet, based on, more focused on the environmental side of things. And that leaflet was the first time ever that all 47 wildlife trusts throughout Britain had allowed, you know, something like that to be put in all the magazines to all the members, and that actually, you know, that brought in a significant amount of money. So yeah, August the 17th, with journalists from every major newspaper in Britain in attendance, we launched our public appeal, and the photographs of that day are hilarious, because the hall wasn't done up then, it was pretty dreary in here. And we all looked absolutely terrified, you know. We're all sitting at the table here, because, you know, none of us had ever done it before. We were really quite, you know, very nervous. Anyway, it was a very good day, it got massive coverage, and money just started flooding in. It was like, I couldn't believe it, really. And we had, yes, John the Post is here, he'll tell you, the post bags that were arriving, and half of us didn't even know how to use a computer. You know, I mean, steep learning curve went on at that point, and every post day, bags would get tipped out on the table, we'd open all the letters, and there'd be maybe, you know, there'd be maybe £5. We put different piles, £5, £10, and then some days, £1,000, you know. So, yes, says here, not only was the total commitment from the people of Egg, but also from politicians, brought the matter up in Parliament, to friends who organised fundraising events, musicians who organised benefit dailies, all over Scotland and as far away as Detroit. Says in here. So we always presumed that the bulk of the buying price would come from the Heritage Lottery Fund. I think our target for that was £800,000. We would raise the rest. And then one day, we got a phone call or fax or something saying that they weren't going to support our aim, they weren't going to support our application because the criteria wouldn't allow. They thought that us buying egg would benefit us more than the wider general public. And this is like, where are we, 96. You know, this were still a Conservative government, who generally are not in favour of land reform. And we never, and what they said to us was, if you change your constitution, instead of it being residents, council, wildlife trust, if you change that constitution to an environmental body or the national trust, then we'll give you the money. And we I don't know to this day, I'm pretty sure there was political interference in that decision. And us being us, we had a meeting and we, you know, like, what are we going to do? And we all said, bugger on. Because by then we'd raised a lot of the money on the basis that the community was going to have the major stake in it. And anyway, we didn't want to be owned by the National Trust. So we turned them down. I sort of think, no. Anyway, carried on fundraising. And I'm going to tell you a wee story that I don't normally include in this speech, but there was one weekend, there was a ceilidh on Mock, and back then there were hardly any places to stay on Mock, so basically it required you staying up all night, coming back early in the morning, which we did. Beautiful morning, we had musicians with us, we went up to the old shop and probably got more drink. But there was music going on the back of a Land Rover, and it was just a really good crack. Unfortunately, there was a Guardian journalist lurking about. And he proceeded to write an article in the Guardian, which was sort of, well, Schellenberg went on to sue him for it, so it were not in favour of Schellenberg, but at this point in time, the trust was getting itself together, And because of all the derogatory things that Schellenberg said to us in the past, we were trying very hard to gain credibility and to make people believe we could actually do it. Unfortunately, the last part of this article said, and Fife was last seen lying at the side of the road. So I was absolutely mortified because I felt that I'd let people down, credibility, blah blah blah. Anyway, shortly after that, I got a phone call one day, and this woman said, I would like to donate. Well, no, her opening line was, I've just read the article in The Guardian. And I was on the phone, but I could feel myself sort of sliding down, really embarrassed. And she said, I'd like to donate a significant amount of money. And in my small world, 500 quid was significant. £500,000 was what she was wanting to donate. Once I got over the shock of that, no strings attached apart from she would remain anonymous. So, that helped a lot.
What's her name?
So we carried on fundraising. There was a closing date for the sale first time round, November '96, and we'd had an independent valuation done, which said that Egg was worth 1.2 million. The asking price was 2 million. But anyway, independent valuation, 1.2 million, and by the closing date in November, that was all the money we had. I've missed a bit. Mystery woman, when she discovered that the lottery had turned us down, she upped a donation to 750,000. With gift aid on top of that, that became £1 million, and that was how we had 1.2 million. So we put our offer in. I think we found out really quickly that there'd been several offers for the island, but none of them, the story we got was none of them reached the asking price of 2 million, so they were all turned down. So obviously we were disappointed, but we decided we'd carry on fundraising and see what happened next. So by the following March, we'd raised we had a meeting and we reckoned we could afford 1.5 million. And there was no closing date. I mean, there'd been some weird kind of things happening, like Alistair touched on that last night as well. There's a guy called Farhad Vladi who is based in Stuttgart, and basically he's an island broker. He buys and sells islands worldwide. Really nice guy. And he'd been sending people over here. And if we got wind of them arriving, we were really polite. In fact, one day John the Post, we knew they were driving around in some vehicle or another, so we got John the Post to park his van in the middle of the road. And we went out and we invited him in for a cup of tea, sitting around the table, and just said, we just want to let you know that if you buy Egg, you're buying it against the wishes of the community. And B, this guy's telling you you're buying the whole thing and you're not. Because there's people here who are legally entitled to leases, etc, etc, etc. So I think we did do a wee bit of market spoiling along the way, yes. So we get to March the following year, no closing date, but we thought we could afford to put a bid in of 1.5 million. And just as we were about to do that, we discovered that the Hong Kong businessman called in his loan. The rumour had used Egg as security, so they took over the sale of the island. Edinburgh lawyers. So they were quite happy to accept our offer of 1.5 million, but they had to be seen to be doing the best for the client. So they re-advertised Egg in national newspapers. And that's the only time that a small group of people kept something from the whole of the community, because basically, if that word got out, somebody could have come in with a higher offer. So that, there was a close down. It was the longest week of my life, I think. They said, we'll accept your offer at 4 o'clock on a Friday afternoon, April 4th. printed on in the brain. And I think this next bit really